Hi, it's Michelle from Bits and Pieces Paper Lab. I thought today we'd do something just a little bit different and talk about creativity and inspiration. I know often I see a lot of questions in scrapbook and card making forums about what you do when you just don't have creativity. Sometimes you've just got a lot, sometimes it's a little lacking. So first of all, I am the marketing director for 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. I've been in that position about 5 years, and prior to that, I actually was a craft editor for about 4 years. So it's kind of my job to be inspired and be creative every single day. So I do get that question, like, what do you do? Sometimes you're just feeling it and sometimes you're not. And that definitely happens to me. But I think I've kind of refined a process to be creative. So sometimes you want to go up in your craft room and craft and you're feeling like you want to create, but you're also just tired or you're just, for some reason, just cannot think of a single idea. So usually what I'll recommend in that case is to just like completely copy a couple things. Find a few things that you love on Instagram or on Pinterest and just make them exactly like they are. Now, obviously, if you share those, you would give credit to whoever you've copied. But for this case, basically what you're doing is just trying to kind of start those creative juices flowing. So it's not necessarily like you're creating something that you would be selling or like really sharing as your own work. You're just trying to kind of get your mind in that mode. And then the second thing I do, which is what we're going to talk about today, is I'll actually use different things as inspiration and make them my own. And they're changed enough that it is a completely fresh creation, but I'm just using the base of someone else's work to just kind of jumpstart my creativity. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So what I usually do is I will go and I will find something that I'll just scroll Instagram until I find something that inspires me or that I'm just really drawn to. And then I stop and I analyze, what is it about this that I'm loving and that is making me drawn to this? And I'll really like pick it apart and say, is it the colors? Do I love the color combo? Do I love the font combination? Do I love maybe like, I'm trying to think of another example, like the monochromatic look, or just what is it about it that is making me drawn to it? And then I use that as the jumping off point for my inspiration. So today we're going to be making 3 projects and I'm going to show you the original inspiration, talk about what it is that inspired me, and then we'll go ahead and create something brand new and fresh from that inspiration. So let's go ahead and jump into creating. All right, this first card I'm going to make is inspired by a layout by Paige Evans. So when I saw this, it stopped my scroll. I just loved how it looked. And as I analyzed it, what I loved about it, I love the triangle design with the multicolors. I thought that was so cool. And then the stitching around the little triangles also really drew my eye. Now I'm going to do something different just because I'm not a stitcher on cards generally. But I'm going to mimic that look doing something else. I also really loved how the words on this are monochromatic with the background. I thought that was really cool. And then I loved the leafy accents that she had on it too, some of the stems and stuff like that. So that's what inspired this first card, those elements from her design. Now I needed to make a sympathy card. So although I loved the color scheme on hers, I actually needed to do something that was just a little bit more, I guess, elegant would be the word, or appropriate for a sympathy card. So I'm mimicking the stitching I cut a base piece and then I cut like a shadow layer. So that's kind of how I'm mimicking that stitched look with my glitter. This is glitter mirror foil from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. That's how I'm mimicking that. And then I chose 2 different colors that are pretty similar. I've got a champagne and a gold so that it still has that pretty multicolored look, but it's using metallic colors instead. Then I cut my sentiment out of the same color of cardstock. This is a metallic paper, but it's the same color as this, just to kind of mimic that color on color font. And then I also cut out a few wispy little stems to mimic that look as well. So let's go ahead and put this card together. I'm going to first get this layer glued to the backing piece, and I think that is way too much glue. Wipe that off a bit. And this just gets layered right on top like this. And again, that just kind of mimics that stitching look, even though I'm not really stitching, I'm just layering. Okay, so let's go ahead and get these glued down. And I do have a white card base here. Let me make sure I've got it, the fold going the right way. I'm just going to position these so all the little points meet up in the middle. I've already got my layers on these other pieces. Get the last one on here. All right. Now, next, I'm going to put a little vellum circle here in the middle, and this will be kind of just like the focal point for my little stems and stuff. I want to be careful when I'm adhering that vellum down, though, that I'm putting the adhesive behind something that will cover it. So this is what it's going to look like. So I'm going to place my adhesive down here in the corner of my vellum just to cover up. It'll be covered up by that flower. So see, you can see sometimes the glue shows through. It looks a little bit messy. It shows through the vellum. So we're just going to hide that on the finished thing. This glitter mirror cardstock just takes a second to kind of catch the adhesive because it's such a slick surface. All right, I'm going to grab a little foam dot to pop up the flower. All right, and then our sentiment is just going to go right on top here. And because it's the same color, you know, it doesn't stand out as much as like a contrasting color would, but that was one of the things I really just loved about the original project, was that you had the subtlety of the words. So I wanted to try to recreate that. All right, these tiny little letters are going to be fun to glue on. So I'm going to use my tweezers. All right, I'm going to fluff my little flower just a little bit here. Okay, simple card, but you can see how I've used all the elements from the original for my design. I think I'm going to add a few more gems right here. I feel like there's just an empty spot here, so I'm going to add a couple of gems right here. And I'm just using these little pearls from 12 by 12 cardstock shop. So again, we're kind of keeping it monochromatic by using gold, little gold gems. I need to mail this, so I'm trying to be conscious of not getting it too layered up and dimensional because I want to be able to mail it. But hopefully these tiny little baubles won't affect that. All right, that's card number 1, inspired by the Paige Evans layout. Okay, next we have a card by Megan Andrew. This is a Valentine card. So when I analyzed this card, what it was that I liked best about it, I really liked the grid design of the hearts. I thought that was really cool. And I liked the fact that there were shaker hearts on it because I love shaker cards. And then I liked that there was a combination of shaker elements and then also the little conversation hearts filling some of the little cavities. So I'm going to kind of recreate the same card, just different. So I'm going to start with a piece of acetate. Now this you can see was a bad cut, but I figured this was kind of the perfect project for it. So I'm going to get my little heart cut out. So instead of doing a whole bunch of little ones, I've just done 4 big ones. And I'm going to adhere these right to my acetate. Because I'm going to turn this into a shaker. And so the acetate is going to be like my shaker window. So we can see through it and see the shaker bits. So I'm just lining these up right next to each other. And you can see I've made my acetate smaller than my cutouts because I don't want that acetate to show on the front of the card. I just want it to kind of provide the window I need. I better do a better job at getting adhesive on all the parts so that I don't have pieces popping up. Okay. Okay, so we've got that. Now I've just created a little sparkly conversation heart, and I'm going to tuck that into this bottom little square, kind of like she did where I'm mixing and matching. So that's going to go in there. And then now I'm going to create my shaker. So what I'm going to do is flip this over, and I need to create like a little cavity for my shakers. Now, if I did a big cavity like all the way around this, what would happen is that my shakers would like settle on the bottom, and you wouldn't have a shaker element on the top there. So what I actually need to do is create little shaker pockets around each of the little hearts. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use foam tape here and create kind of a grid pattern on the back here. Now, it's important when you're doing shakers that you get every square inch covered by the foam tape. You can't have any gaps, or as soon as you start shaking it, everything starts pouring out. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is figure out my grid pattern, but also keep things tight together so that there's no gaps. And this is going to look like a hot mess on the back, but it's fine because nobody is going to see the back. I also want to make sure that all of that adhesive is really pushed down onto the acetate. The acetate, because it's slick, has a tendency to, things want to pop up. So I just need to make sure that's not going to happen. I think I'm going to put one more row of foam tape right here so that I've got more tight windows for my shaker bits. Because if I try to fill that big window, things will settle to the bottom and you won't see them in the individual hearts. Okay, I'm going to give this one more really good press so I can make sure everything's adhered down. Now we're going to go ahead and add our shaker elements. So I'm going to use some champagne colored sequin. This is kind of or I guess it's glitter, but it's kind of a chunkier glitter, and it actually matches my sentiment really well. So we're going to use that. We're going to use some red seed beads, and the seed beads are heavier, so it gives it some weight and it'll really make that good shaker sound. And then I'm using some of the shaker bits from 12 by 12 cardstock shop. We've got little love letters and hearts. So I'm going to start. Now you notice I have not peeled up this foam tape at all yet. Oh, you know what? I forgot my crossways ones. I guess that didn't really matter, but if you wanted to do different elements in each window, you'd need to section them off like that. But I'm just going to do kind of the same thing in all of them. I'm going to put a mix of all these different things in. Now remember, this one's actually covered up, so I don't need to put any shakers in that one because it's covered by the heart on the front. We're going to add a little bit of glitter. Okay, got all our shaker elements in there. Now comes the treacherous part. I have to peel up all this foam tape without bumping it and just knocking everything all over the place, which I've done before. That's how I know that this could be an issue. I'm just being very careful. Okay, we've almost made it without a disaster. All right, did I get it all? Oops, didn't get that one. Okay, so now the back of my shaker window is going to be my card. So I'm making sure my card is opening the right way, and I'm going to press this down, trying to just line things up. And I'm going to push down really good all the way around because I want to make sure that foam tape really adheres well everywhere on all the cross pieces before I flip it over. All right. So look, we've got all our little shaker windows. Nothing's spilling out when I shake, which is the good news. And then we're going to finish it off with a cute little sentiment here in the center. It just says, love you. I love this Barely Art glue because it's got that precision tip and you can get really fine amounts of glue on stuff. Oops. Okay. That is our second card, inspired by an Instagram card. Okay, our final card is inspired by a scrapbook page by Annette Jelensker. I hope I'm saying that right. And this, what I loved about this layout was, first of all, the white background and then the crisp kind of hand-drawn looking stems along the scrapbook page. I just thought that was absolutely beautiful. So that's what inspired this, was the white background and then the fun little funky hand-drawn stems. Now I use a Cricut, so I could have used my Cricut pen, I guess, but I didn't. I just made some little cut files of some spindly little flower stems. So that's what I'm going to use. So they're just like, I made them kind of look a little bit wonky and hand-drawn. And we're going to go ahead and mount a piece of white paper onto this Cerio gold paper. Now this is this white paper has gold and silver flecks in it. It's really pretty. All right, we're going to add our little stems along the bottom here, like they're growing up from the bottom of the card. And again, this is where this Barely Art glue comes in really handy because I can get glue on these tiny little pieces. I'm just going to add my stems. Now again, I needed another sympathy card. We had a death in our family and I needed to send out multiple sympathy cards. So I am doing more of a subtle, I don't know why I think like a bright color palette isn't good for a sympathy card, because it absolutely is, but I've just chosen some more subtle colors. These are just kind of growing up from the bottom of the card. Then I'm going to add my flowers. I've got one large red one and then 3 small flowers. Let me just see if I can. Wow, I managed to not lose the flower centers. That's quite an accomplishment for me. Usually when I cut things out, I lose the pieces of the tiny ones. So just get these added. All right, and then I'm going to use some foam dots to pop these up. And I'm going to put this red one kind of as the statement piece on the top of the bigger, tallest stem. And then I'll put these smaller ones on the shorter stems. Just like that. Now you could absolutely stop just at that. I wanted to add a little sentiment, so I'm going to do a little vellum here at the bottom, and I'm going to put my glue right here, because I think that, actually I should put on here, I think that because of the difference in papers, it won't really be noticeable that there's glue there if I push it down really well. Because the glue is basically covering that whole part where the darker color is, and so it kind of looks like it's meant to be there. Then I'm going to add my little thinking of you sentiment right to my vellum. And in this case, I'm actually going to spell my letters, spell my sentiment backwards. See if I can do this without misspelling something, because I want it to end up, well, let me get this adhered and I'll show you. I want the sentiment to end, be kind of tucked underneath the thinking and end right here. So I'm going to start with the end in mind so I can get it aligned right. So far, so good. Spelling things right. And the Barely Art glue does dry clear, so you can see I've got a bit of a glue seepage here, but that actually will dry clear and you won't even see it. So, all right, that is card number 3, inspired by a layout, and you would never know that this was inspired by that layout. It's a totally different look. I had to use a little bit of creativity, but most of the creativity was done by someone else. I just kind of adapted it for my own. Hopefully this was helpful and inspires you to try all those projects that you've been pinning without actually just copying them exactly. I hope you found that helpful and that it will get you out of your creative funk the next time you're feeling like you want to create but just can't quite get over that hump to start making. All of these papers are from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop, and I will link those in the description below. And if you have any questions, let me know.